You know, in my lifetime, I have lived to see a lot of history, right? A lot of good history, a lot of bad history, a lot of in between history, sports, this, that, the third, whatever. I have never experienced three teams favorited by me lose in one night. I had the Yankees lose game three of the World Series. I had the Knicks lose to the Cavs, but of course, we got another loss from the New York football Giants on primetime football to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hope you guys are doing well. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. Appreciate you coming back. Share this out. Do all the good stuff. Go on Apple Podcasts. Rate it 5 stars. You guys know what to do. And first, I'd like to apologize to everybody that this podcast episode is coming out way late. I had some stuff to do early in the day, and the Monday Night Football timeline kind of screwed me up, and there are some things that I cannot control. My frustration, and it's like a mental disease, that I'm not frustrated about my sports teams losing. Now, the Knicks and the Rangers and the Irish, that's put aside because the Irish, I do tune into the Irish when I can, and the Knicks, of course, and the Rangers is like third on that list. But when the Yankees lose in embarrassing fashion, I don't get angry anymore. I just have to sit back and laugh. When the Giants, especially, sit here and lose these games like they have and don't make necessary changes, they do the wrong shit. It's mind-boggling, but it's not surprising at the same time because I'm not going to sit here and get my blood pressure up over something that's going to happen continually. Like, how much sense does that make? So, I'm just apathetic, I think is the word, to all of this losing. And each of these problems are preventable from the New York Giants. It's not, oh, well, it's something that, you can't control and this thing. No, the Yankees, I'm getting my sports mixed up here. The Giants can absolutely control their flaws. They just choose not to. And that falls on everybody. And again, how many of these type of games are we going to sit here? Because, like, you talk about moral victories, right? If I was to go and talk about a moral victory and pick a game out, I'd probably end up picking a little bit of Cincinnati and a little bit of Dallas. I picked those two games as moral victories. Washington, not so much. But I don't even feel like the Cincinnati game 100% is a moral victory, neither the Eagle game or the Steeler game, because it's breathing incompetence. It's exhaling incompetence among the New York football Giants to where, again, everybody's to blame, except for the defense. Certain players on the defense we could question. But, I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same. It is the same repeated nonsense. Again, it's on loop. It's going to be on loop for the next, let's see, what are the Giants right now? 2-6. You got 18 weeks. You got 10 more weeks of the season, and one of those is a bye, which is going to happen in 3 weeks. Which might be the most relaxing weekend I probably have had in a number of weekends. And I won't have to talk about this nonsense, but it's more of the same. It's more of the same, and what can I say? What can I say? So let's go into the game breakdown, and I see a lot of people on social media, they're finally done with Daniel Jones. I was done with Daniel Jones after the Cowboy game, and I gave him his roses and flowers after the Seahawks game. And then he proceeded to shit the bed against Cincinnati. He proceeded to shit the bed against the Eagles. He didn't have a bad first half. Like, statistically, he wasn't terrible. 24-38, 264 yards. But he does throw the stupid interception. He does take 4 sacks, which, of course, it's not all on him. But this is with Daniel Jones, right? When you get good Daniel Jones, it's only first half Daniel Jones. Showed up against the Browns, showed up against the Seahawks, and showed up against the Steelers. The Giants could have won this game. Was Daniel Jones the only reason they didn't win the game? Of course not. No, because I think the head coach had a lot to do with it. I think the defense at certain points definitely struggled. The special teams giving up a punt return touchdown, not great either. But you just notice, like, what's the difference between a franchise quarterback and somebody who, is just average, right? They can't get you over the hill. They can't get you over the line. And not to say, again, that Drew Lock is better, not to say that Tommy DeVito is better or some schmuck you pull off the street. But the Giant fans are just sick and fucking tired of watching this garbage product. They're sick and tired of watching this average quarterback play football. And it's the same shit. Daniel Jones had, again, first half Daniel Jones wasn't terrible. He made a great throw to Slayton down the field. He also made a couple of nice throws too. I mean, in the second half, I mean, you have, I don't remember when specifically. It was the first half of the second half. So please forgive me for the time lapse. But that hospital ball could have gotten Darius Slayton fucking killed. I mean, not literally killed, but you could have gave him a concussion because picture this as you hear the sirens in the background. And you're literally watching the game. Jones, I think they're in some type of zone defense because that doesn't look like man defense. It looks like a zone defense. So Slayton he looked like he was just doing a 9 route. And there was a window between Minkah Fitzpatrick and the corner. So the corner lets up. And Slayton, he's running past the corner. And, of course, the safety's there. So Daniel Jones waits like 2 seconds more. And Slayton doesn't catch the ball. Now, could he have caught the ball? Maybe he could have. But at the same time, this is one of my main issues with Daniel Jones. And I learn more and more every year, as I always say. Daniel Jones doesn't throw with fucking anticipation. If you're open, he's going to throw it to you. He doesn't throw you open. That doesn't happen with Daniel Jones. That play is a prime example, right? That play is an absolute prime example. Slayton is how many inches from the safety, and then he finally throws the football? How about throw the guy open? That's what we're talking about, like taking shots. Taking shots in terms of the flaw of Daniel Jones can be dispersed in many different ways. Number 1, not taking shots. Number 2, not seeing guys. And 3, not throwing with anticipation. I just don't get it. We're in year 6, and I don't understand what this team has to see to sit here and say, oh, well, Daniel Jones still I mean, in truth and fairness, he probably still gives the Giants the best chance to win because they fucked the quarterback room. They didn't draft a quarterback. They didn't sign a good backup. People saying, Drew Lock is still one of the upper echelon backup QBs in the league. I don't care because guess what? The Giants need competition. We know that in the injury clause, Daniel Jones gets, $23-25 million if he gets hurt? So you put in Tyrod Taylor, you could still win football games and then draft a quarterback next year. But guess what? Tyrod didn't want to come back. You didn't want to pay him the money. You didn't sign Jameis Winston, Gardner Minshew, this guy, that guy, and you're stuck with Drew Lock. And again, as I told you guys last show, that is done on purpose. That is done on purpose because the Giants didn't want to put competition next to Daniel Jones. They didn't want to do this. They didn't want to do that. And, every time we're force-fed Daniel Jones and then he leaves with an injury or he's benched or something like that, we get Drew Lock or we get some other bum. And guess what? The effect of that is, oh my God, Daniel Jones is better. He's better than these guys, et cetera, whatever. Right? He's better than these guys. But how low is the bar that we're setting? How low is the bar? So you could say you're 264 yards, it's not a bad game. He didn't have a bad first half. The second half, in the crucial moments of the game, he was not there. He visibly did not show the fuck up. Let me get to something. So I look at 2 drives. And these are game-defining drives. These are game-defining drives, people. Your defense, who has been shit in a running game, but they did a very good job in the second half, even though they gave up they didn't even give up 17 points. They gave up 10 points. Basically because of the punt return touchdown, which the Giants gave up to Calvin Austin. So you had, 10 points given up. Your defense, once again, Russell Wilson, he's running with the ball. Bobby Okereke, who really didn't play well, slaps the ball out of the hands, recovers the fumble on his back, and they take over with the football. Now, usually, your quarterback or your team, if you're a competent team, would take that and run into the end zone or get a field goal with it. Instead, Daniel Jones decides to not pull Theo Johnson to the right side for Jermaine Illuminor, and he focuses on the coverage. And As a result, he gets strip sacked. Jermaine Eliminor is not winning that matchup against TJ Watt. He didn't win the matchup against TJ Watt. Let's be completely honest, right? But people could say, oh, that sack wasn't on Daniel Jones, and, Jermaine Eliminor should have blocked better. But when Brian Daboll calls out his quarterback at the end of the game, I mean, it's kind of telling that he's kind of fed up with him. Not that he has any right, because this game was horribly coached on the offensive side of the ball. He's his quarterback, right? However you look at it, they made the decision this offseason, and they still haven't pulled him. So that's on Daniel Jones. And then, your defense makes another stop. Daniel Jones drives down the field. He throws an interception to the right side, which is pretty much alike to the interception, one of them at least, that I saw against Tampa Bay in 2020. And Theo Johnson and Devin Singletary were open. So, again, people could look at the stat sheet and say, well, he didn't do that bad against a decent Steelers defense. I don't buy that shit, to be honest with you guys. I've seen Daniel Jones do this a number of times over 6 years. It's over, it's done, but the Giants will trot out Daniel Jones because they feel it is necessary. They feel they give him the best chance to win. But if he comes out and shits the bed in 2 more games, which, to be honest with you, as a fan, I am rooting for, because winning at this point in the season does shit for you. If he goes against Washington, he doesn't play well, or you don't win, and you don't play well against Carolina overseas, then I think it's time to reconsider your quarterback options. Obviously, during that time, you ought to trade some guys, and if you don't, you're clearly incompetent, and maybe go with Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito and see what you got in Lock, because we know what DeVito is. So as far as the Daniel Jones brigade and the talk and all that other shit goes, I mean, it's more of the same. For the next 2 weeks, at the minimum, I will be talking about this, because I don't feel that Daniel Jones does enough for the New York Football Giants to win. He gives them the best chance to win, but they don't end up winning. So, not to mention, the next game is at MetLife Stadium, which for some reason, Daniel Jones has not scored a touchdown in there since 2023. Realistically, it's 2022, because it was the 2023 game against the Colts. It was on January 1st, 2023. I remember, because I was at that game. And, so the Giants are 0-4 at home. And they're playing a very hot Washington team. So, and I'm supposed to get excited. I'm not. Garbage team. I will say a positive before we go back to the negatives. You had 10 plays of 15-plus yards, 2 20-plus yard runs, and you also had Tyrone Tracy. He was excellent. This game showed you, and Devin Singletary obviously was in the game, I think you're starting to see a trend here where obviously the Giants run zone and gap schemes in the running game. Tyrone Tracy, I think, is going to solidify himself in the next few games, if he hasn't already, as the number 1 running back. Now, the problem is he's in concussion protocol. I highly doubt he plays next week, so you might see Dante Miller. But the Giants ran him 20 times for 145, 7.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 45. And I believe that may have been one of the bigger plays of the Giants season, because they haven't really had these 40, 45, 35, 50-yard plays that end in touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy might have the longest play for the New York Football Giants the entire season. Again, I could be wrong. I'm going to look it up under the stat sheet right here. So let's see. Daniel Jones, what's his longest pass? 43 yards. And as far as the longest run, that's 45 yards for Tyrone Tracy. So he has the longest play of the New York Football Giants season under his belt. That is, that's kind of sad. And let's just say you take away a carry for Tyrone Tracy. It's that 45-yard carry that ended in a touchdown. So you take that away. He has 100 yards on 19 carries, which is about 5.2 yards per carry. This kid, and I've been teeter-tottering between a couple of different thoughts in my head over the last few weeks, whether he could be a running back one or this, that, and the other thing. He definitely is a 1 or 2. He's definitely a 1 or 2. I haven't really made up my mind yet. I think you do need a second back with Tracy, though. You can't have Singletary, who really doesn't give you much. Eric Gray is shit. Dante Miller's not going to be much of any help, so you probably go into next year's draft, get a running back, or get a veteran running back, because it's good you have Tracy. It's good that they were blocking for him, but I think he does need an extra compliment, because I don't think 20 runs a game for Tyrone Tracy really does anything of help. It doesn't really do anything to help you. So, as far as where I have a problem with offensive coaching, let's talk about that. So, here's the offensive line, by the way. You had Chris Hubbard start at left tackle, and I'll get to that shit in a minute. 12 pressures. John Runyon, 6 pressures. John Michael Schmitz, 1 pressure. Graver Van Roten, 2 pressures. And Eleanor, 4 pressures. I think he gave up 2 sacks. Hubbard gave up 2 sacks, so that's 4 sacks total. Daniel Jones. Though I will say, I really don't want to credit Eleanor with 2 sacks, because statistically, yeah, he gave up 2 sacks. You think about it. But the first sack that he gave up, to my knowledge, was Daniel Jones. He was like 3rd and 19. This dude has tunnel vision down the field, and he doesn't go through his progressions. He just looks at one guy. Meanwhile, you had a guy in the flat, you had a guy to the left, and you just got to get yards for punt yardage. Make it easy on your guy, Matt Hack. And I know you're trying to go for the deep play, and I appreciate that. But literally, if you watch that replay, Daniel Jones is going, hot. Like, that's not getting anything done. So what happens is Daniel Jones tries to move up in the pocket, and he gets sacked because he held the ball too long. So that's 1. And then 2 was the forced fumble by TJ Watt. So that's where I have a big problem with, counting against Illuminor. I think Illuminor is better. I think the offensive line did a decent job considering the circumstances against the Steelers line, because you had Cam Hayward, you had Alex Highsmith, who dominated Chris Hubbard. He put him in water. And Highsmith, again, he's one of the better pass rushers. I think he's really underrated. He's making a name for himself. And you had Cam Hayward. Yeah, I said Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward, Watt, and Highsmith. Highsmith and Watt had 2 sacks each. So, and then, of course, there were other quarterback hits. Peyton Wilson, Cam Hayward had 2. So, that's, again, I don't think they did a horrible job considering the line they played against. Hopefully it gets better next week, because if it doesn't get better next week, then you kind of have to start asking questions, because they did look like shit against the Eagles. So here is my fucking problem with the coaching. And I've started to get on them a little bit more as the weeks go by and all this shit. First of all, 2-point conversion. I think at that point in time, it was, 23 to 15. You need the extra point, right? And it's not like Greg Joseph has missed any kicks. I mean, in the past, he has. But he didn't miss any kicks in the game. Hell, he scored the first 9 points for you. So why are you being a smartass against the Steelers when you fucking know, right off the bat, it's going to be hard to score because of your quarterback. It's going to be hard to score because of the defense. That's my problem with going for 2. And at the end of the day, right, if you're going to go for 2, why not just line up in a regular formation? Why have 3 linemen here, a bunch of schmucks on the right side, and on the left side you have linemen and Malik Neighbors? When I saw that, I'm like, wait, was there like a false start? Was there a timeout? No, it was a real play. I don't understand why Brian Dable would do some shit like that. That is the level of the Chuck Pagano, I want to say it was Pat McAfee or whoever was the punter in the Colts in 2014, 2015 against the Pats. I mean, that's silly shit. You're losing. You are fucking losing, and you're doing some dumb shit like that. And you add one more point, it's a touchdown game. I mean, it's still a touchdown game because it's 26-18. But fuck, man, I mean, it's sheer stupidity. And here's where I also get into coaching. Obviously, again, if you want to go for two, go for a regular formation. Go for something that's not complicated. Don't sit here and do this other nonsense. You're not... I know at this point in the season, it's like, well, you know, they're 2-5. You might as well throw it in the bucket. There's so many other plays that you could run and actually, you know, just run and put in the end zone and just fail. I would appreciate that a little bit more than sitting here running a 3-ring circus to your left side and Malik Neighbors being blown up and nobody being ready to block. Everybody was just... And then, I don't know if it was Highsmith or somebody. They just came through. And then you see the linemen, they're right there. They're just... So I'm like, I don't know. And the Giants had 9 offensive penalties. 9 of them. And most of them were procedural. Illegal formation, who's not on the line of scrimmage, who's doing this, who's not in set motion. I mean, the Giants had 11 penalties total for 65 yards. And it's not like, oh, well, you know, sometimes penalties can be drawn out of context. It's that and the third. Well, and you got to look at it this way. The Giants are a bad offense. League average at best when they want to play like it. Yeah, that's just facts. And, well, when you have a bad offense, you need every little point that can count. So, pretty much all those penalties were crucial. The Giants don't have the personnel or the manpower to go out there and overcome these big fucking penalties. So, that's shameful. That's on Brian Daboll. That's on the offense. However you want to scheme it. That is on Brian Daboll. That is on the offense. Can't sit there, have 9 penalties. 9 penalties. And I'm going to throw in my shot at Joe Shane too, because I feel like I'm obligated. The Giants came in to training camp, right? And Evan Neal was still going through his rehab process, and even in the rookie mini camps and the mini camps, eventually the mandatory ones, they had Josh Azudu as the backup tackle. They had him as a right tackle when Neal was hurt, and this was before they signed Van Roten. And then even after, they had him as the backup left tackle. They didn't play him as guard, so that was puzzling, and he was getting beat by Azeez Ojulari in camp. So again, puzzling, and you drafted him to play guard, which he's a better guard than tackle. I mean, it doesn't take a fucking scientist to figure that one out. So, what's a bigger indictment, and the beat loves to defend this for some reason, is you come into the season, you don't pick up another backup tackle. You don't check in on Tyree Phillips. You have Joshua Miles, who had a pretty good preseason on the practice squad, and Josh Azudu, who sucked last year before the toe injury at left tackle and got Daniel Jones hurt. He is your backup tackle. He's a guy that's been going on the wasn't really 2-point conversions, but the jumbo packages, the extra tackle packages. That's where Josh Azudu was. Instead of giving Evan Neal snaps, who's a guy you could still kind of find out to see where, you know, okay, maybe it was just the online coach, stuff like that. When we saw with Josh Azudu that he just sucks. Sorry, he just fucking stinks. And again, elected not to go in free agency. Andrew Thomas goes down with a Liz Frank injury that could be career-altering. And as a result of that, you got Josh Azudu, who sucked last week, and you bring in Chris Hubbard, who gave up 12 quarterback pressures. Now, guaranteed, again, Alex Highsmith is a great player. Potentially great, I should say. He's a very good player at this moment. But you're going off the scrap heap to pick up guys like Chris Hubbard. You didn't draft a single offensive lineman in a very stacked O-line class. You elected to keep Josh Ezeudu as the left tackle, or at least the backup tackle. You didn't want to give Evan Neal a shot, didn't want to push Eliminor over. I mean, it would have taken time, but Eliminor, I think, could play a decent, at least left tackle, and you put Neal at right tackle. Just see what he could get. If not, Chris Hubbard played a number of seasons at right tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers and for the Cleveland Browns. So it just shows where we're at, and that's poor roster management. Because it's not like, 7 guys on the line got hurt, 4 guys on the line got hurt. This is one guy getting hurt on the line, and you don't have a fucking plan. So now it's going to be hope that Hubbard gets better against these guys next week against Washington, against Dorrance Armstrong and whoever they else got. F.A. Obata, I believe, is on that team too. And Andre Carter. So that's the luck, right? And also KJ Henry. Hope that these guys don't have a rambunctious game against Hubbard. And you still have Daniel Jones in there with the injury clause. So eventually one side of the seesaw is going to go down. It's either Daniel Jones gets hurt or your left tackle continues to stink. And I'm not expecting play of Andrew Thomas here. I'm not. I'm expecting solid play, decent play, NFL caliber play. And that's what the Giants' backup tackle position has not given us. I mean, how much did you actually expect out of a left tackle that was signed off of a practice squad and was going to be forced to be in a pinch with Alex Highsmith on the other side? And to be honest with you, what's the point of putting in Josh Ezeudu again? Sometimes you have to bench players and you got to bring them back out. What's the point with Josh Ezeudu? He stinks. He can't play tackle. For some reason, he can't play guard either. So what's his use? It's this, folks. Joe Schoen wants to justify a draft pick. For some reason, he's more about justifying the draft pick of Josh Ezeudu as a backup tackle, when really he should have been a backup guard, than Evan Neal, who may not show more than Josh Ezeudu, but I don't know. It's beyond frustrating. It's beyond frustrating at this point. So, just want to remind you folks that, of course, you can go to SeatGeek for your parking passes, your concert tickets, and your game tickets. Get $20 off on your first order with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. $20 off if you're seeing a basketball game, a hockey game, a soccer game, a football game if you choose. All that stuff, $20 off with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. Just wanted to send that out there. So as far as the defense, right, there's not too many negatives, but there are some negatives. Starting with the positives, because I'll start there. Brian Burns and Azeez Ojulari are productive, which prompts a thing that we'll talk about at the end, and I'm going to add it to my notes. Slayton and Azeez, you guys already know what I'm going to talk about. But Azeez Ojulari, 2 sacks in this game. You had Brian Burns 1 sack in this game, and Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke combined for 1, so 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, 2 pass deflections, and 5 TFLs. Armin Watts also had a TFL, which was pretty interesting because he's a guy who was literally just signed this week, and he makes a nice play in the running game, so credit to him. But the Giants got better in the second half against the running game. First half wasn't great. Giants linebackers were getting blocked up, and Najee Harris was running all over them, and he had 6 yards per carry, 19 carries, and Jaylen Warren even had some decent numbers against them. He had 9 carries for 46 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, So you take that, I mean, that's still a decent number. And even with Russell Wilson rushing 3 times for 7 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, which, again, isn't good. 167 yards, that's not good. So you kind of have to wonder at this point where the Giants need to put more emphasis. Do they put more emphasis on edge rushers that can defend the run a little bit better? Do they put more emphasis on stacking the box? Do they put more emphasis on defensive tackle? Because Nacho's decent at best. Armon Watts just got signed. DJ Davidson's meh. Jordan Riley really hasn't gotten any snaps. So you're looking at failed investments there. Do you have to go into next year, and besides a corner and a quarterback, do you have to go out there and pick a defensive tackle on day 1 or day 2? Someone who turns into a stud. We know Andre Patterson can do well, but he can't, be on the field for these guys. You can only, I think it's a saying, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So you look at the last 3 years, especially from 2022 on. You bring in Wink, you bring in Shane Bowen. They had some very good run defenses for their respective defenses, right? And then they come here and it's complete shit. So something needs to be investigated. I think the Giants need another very good defensive tackle, and they need solid depth behind it. It's not just when Dex is off the field. I mean, the guy next to him has to do his job too. So, again, that's one of my main points. But Najee Harris really didn't do much in the second half. Have to give the Giants credit; they adjusted a little bit. Aziz and Burns productive. Dexter Lawrence had a quiet game, but it was like a quiet, productive game. Statistically, he had one quarterback hit, but there was that one snap where Russell Wilson had to roll out of the pocket because I think it was Ryan McCullum, the center. He got absolutely trounced. Like Dexter Lawrence tossed him like a rag doll. So that's just worth noting. And let's bring this up before we get to the leadership and all these other different things at the end. Deonte Banks getting benched. First of all, I've never seen a franchise have 3 first-round corners. It's not in a row, but you could kind of say it's in a row with a number of years. Pick, obviously, their number 1 corner, draft-wise. First it was Eli Apple, DeAndre Baker, Deonte Banks. Now, I don't think Deonte Banks is a dickhead like those two, but it's weird as like a culture issue, or it's this or it's that, to where it's just not working out. It's just not working out. Banks was benched for tackling issues. He did make 1 or 2 missed tackles, and he also got hurdled over by Najee Harris. Now, here's the thing. He was giving effort, and I'm like in the middle on this, and I hate to be in the middle. I hate being in the middle, man. I could understand holding your team accountable, right? Benching Deonte Banks, but at the same time, there are other players on this team that have done poorly, but really haven't gotten benched. I mean, you're sitting here, Deonte Banks gets benched, Azudu gets benched, rightfully so, but Daniel Jones, I mean, he's still on the football field because the Giants have the best chance to win. Guess what, right? Deonte Banks, whether we like it or not, gives the Giants a better secondary look than if he was out and you have Greg Stroman and Nick McLeod at corner with Andrew Phillips in the slot. He gives them a better look. It's just facts, right? I could shit on Deonte Banks all I want. He's had a terrible season. He's not a corner 1. He's not living up to that 24th overall pick. But it's just facts. He does give you a better chance than Greg Stroman and Nick McLeod. So you got to hold the team accountable to a level. And as far as Banks and stuff, right? Why not bench him at the beginning of the game? Why not bench him for a quarter at the beginning of the game, then insert him in? It just kind of seems silly where, the plays were getting extensive in the secondary. Jason Pinnock was abused by Darnell Washington because Darnell Washington is a mountain of a man. So just stay consistent. That's all I got to say. Stay fucking consistent with who you're benching, who you're holding accountable, because I don't think Deonte Banks is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But if you kind of do that inconsistently and the team keeps losing, you're not going to have a team for very long, and you're not going to have a job for very long. That's where I could say, okay, Brian Daboll needs to shut the fuck up and put his guys on the field and just hold everybody to a level of fairness, equality, and accountability. So I do like the quote from Brian Burns to where he says, this team needs to grow up. They do. This team needs to grow up, but I mean, I will say I do like them going out there and, Greg Van Roten giving a speech about attention to detail. That's good, but I need to see it in game form, right? I need to see everybody progress. And though, as a fan, I'm not going to root for wins because I don't feel that's helpful to this team, that's proving me wrong. And on the football field, and as an objective content creator, you would like to see that because there are players that will be here next year. I don't know if Dable's going to be here next year. My guess is yes, he will be. So you do have to win to a certain extent and have the players in check. But I think we're, holy shit, a week away from the trade deadline. So in that regard, we're a week away. The Giants need to make some decisions. If you're not going to trade Aziz or Slayton, sign them to extensions. Now, personally, me, I would keep Aziz and I would trade Darius Slayton because I feel like Slayton is about average and you could pick up a day 3 pick. And I know people say, oh, you shouldn't pick him up for a day 3 pick. That's degrading, this, that, and the third. It's like, I don't care. Why would we let these guys go into free agency for comp picks that we may or may not get? Or just let him go into free agency and get nothing. Stockpile the picks. Hope in the late rounds you do get something because Aziz, hopefully, if the Giants do end up trading him, you get like a 3, a 4, maybe a 5. Slayton probably like a 5 or a 6 because of the Deontay Johnson trade. But you got to make a decision. And that's where Joe Schoen has been slow in his tracks. He's been slow in his tracks there. McKinney, Slayton, they didn't want to trade him last year because they felt they could win games and make a run. That was all for naught. And then they proceeded to let them walk in free agency for absolutely nothing. So my mind says make a decision. But held you guys long enough. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when the live stream pops or video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool. And, of course, keep that blood pressure low.